Thanks, Pankaj, for having us.
And also the attendees, who are with us on Zoom and also on FB Live. So my name is Prashant. I'm the founder of InspireInd. And a little bit, 2 lines about InspireInd. InspireInd is basically an emerging platform where we are planning to bring together individuals who have, an inspiring journey to their life, people who have struggled a lot and have come up. So those kind of stories, online as well as offline. So offline, we are planning to start as soon as, the government starts giving permissions for these offline events and all. So we are planning to take it to all parts of the country. So today is the 5th part of the webinar series we have been doing titled A Different World, just because of what is happening due to this COVID thing. Okay. So I'd just like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Lina Sonne. She's an innovation economist with over 15 years of experience writing, teaching, and advising on social innovation and entrepreneurship, digitalization, and gender inclusion, the future of work and entrepreneurship in the creative industries in India. She's based in India since 2011, and she runs InBlick Innovation. So over to you, Lina.
Thank you very much, Prashant. So it's great to be here. Just a reminder, anyone on Zoom, to keep your cameras off so that we don't exhaust the bandwidth. So let me start by introducing all these fabulous ladies that we have with us today. And please also feel free to ask questions in the Q&A function that you should be having on the Zoom chat. So first we have, and I think you'll have to, I don't know what order the audience can see you in, so please wave when I mention who you are. So first we have Dr. Ananta Singh Raghuvanshi, who is a TEDx speaker and a business leader in the real estate industry for over 3 decades, having launched over 100 different products. Ananta is passionate about the safety and education of children and also mentor and coach women entrepreneurs. She's been featured in a range of, in Business Today and a range of other news features, magazines, and has won a number of different awards. So welcome, wonderful to have you here. Then we have Tara Kaushal, who is a writer and media consultant living between Mumbai here in India and Australia, the Gold Coast of Australia. So she has just completed writing her first book, Why Men Rape, an Indian undercover story, an Indian undercover investigation it is, which is one of the most awaited books in 2020 and should be out very shortly. She is passionate about gender diversity, social equality, and fair treatment of all people, and has written on these issues and interviewed people for a range of publications across the world. And then we have Poonam Vijay Thakkar, who is an award-winning marketing professional and growth mindset speaker from the financial sector. She has over 2 decades of diverse experience in the field of 360 marketing, 360 marketing, digital, and growth. She's also a mentor of change at Niti Aayog for the government of India, and an internationally certified life wellness coach. And then last but not least, we have Bhavna Toor, who is an entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Shenomics. Bhavna is passionate about the intersection of mindful leadership and women's leadership. She has designed and delivered mindful-based leadership training and coaching programs for women at leading organizations for the past 5 years across India and the world. So welcome all, it's wonderful to have you here. I think, given that you all have done a lot of interesting stuff and won lots of awards for very successful careers and diverse careers at that, I wanted you to start by asking you, and I think we can all go in turn, what have been your drivers? What have kept you going? And what are the drivers that you've had during your career? And, how have you progressed from, when you started off in a junior position and then moving forward? So do you want to start, Ananta?
Oh, yes, certainly. Thank you, Lina, for that lovely introduction, and a very, very happy Mother's Day to our entire audience and also to my fellow panelists. So what has been the driver? I think the drivers are the same for anybody who eventually reaches the goal post, right? One is that you do not quit. Second is that you're not afraid of any amount of work and any kind of work. And the third is you don't stop learning. So essentially it boils down to resilience. So I feel that resilience is one quality that is absolutely essential to find your way around the world in general and also in life. Second thing is that one needs to be extremely self-motivated. If you are looking at others for appreciation or for direction, that may or may not happen, and you mustn't lose focus in your journey because you're not getting the necessary motivation from the external environment. You have to dig in and keep yourself motivated, because ultimately it's your journey, it's your goal, it's your dreams. So that's there. Now, for both of this to actually get you results is the final thing, which is that you really need to be organized and disciplined. I'm not saying that, you need to be finicky about a particular thing, maybe cleanliness or timing or anything, but generally you need to be very organized and disciplined, because if you're not organized and disciplined, no matter how talented you are, somewhere down the line, you will lose the way. So I think essentially it's these three things. One is resilience, the second is self-motivation, and of course, the third is that you need to be disciplined. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Let me switch from corporate to, say, non-corporate. So Tara, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you've been moving in different career directions and now working as a writer and, clearly some quite courageous writing. Could you tell us what has been your sort of the drivers of your journey?
So Lina, essentially, I started working on why men rape in 2013. At least I had the idea for what I wanted to do with my writing on gender and sexuality all this while. This is where I knew I wanted to go. But in 2013, when I looked at the scale of the project and, wanting to go undercover and all of those things, I realized that it wasn't feasible. There wasn't enough money. There were a lot of factors holding me up. So it wasn't until 2017 that I actually started working on Why Men Rape, which is finally being released next month. So it's been a really intense and hard journey. One of the things that I do want to say about this journey is that the biggest lesson I've actually learned is tenacity. Because, we're in an instant gratification world. We're used to instant gratification, whether it's bylines as a writer or it's, Insta likes and Facebook likes and all of those things. But writing is slow and hard and boring. And it's not instant gratification. At least writing a book this extensive has taken its toll and it's taken its while. But I have to say, at the end of it, the rewards are something else. Just submitting my manuscript, I was able to say, okay, look, I did that. And to me, that's been really worth it. It depends on whether I think you're process-oriented or goal-oriented. And hats off to people who are process-oriented. I'm not. And so the goal of pressing send on that final manuscript has made it all worth it. So tenacity has been my big lesson in the past few years, that you really have to go at it. You set yourself a goal and you decide that that's what you want to do and you do it.
So we have resilience and tenacity, quite similar. So, Poonam, in your career, and again, you've done diverse things. You're in the banking and finance sector, but you're also a life wellness coach. How does this, what's the journey that you've had, and would you agree with the resilience, tenacity, being organized? Are these the sort of lead words for you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Hi, Lina, and hi, everybody. All the participants also, welcome to the session. I completely in sync with the thoughts that are coming in the panel, definitely. And from where my learning has begun, it's very simple. It started with having a small goal when you start your career. But the biggest learning that I've had in my career has to relate to persistence. And that's the lead word I would want to add on. Persistence can move mountains. We have heard about it, right? And in your career also, many a times, constantly we are in the process of decision making. And that decision has to be of going up, going low, going bilateral, going sideways, or having a goal to go 10 times above. It's all about the vision that you have in your life and a goal which is attached to it and a means to achieve that, and having the persistence in the difficult times when every time you get the thought of giving up, calling yourself a failure, believing that you're failing. In one of my last sessions, I mentioned about that failure is just a mindset. There is no real failure that happens. It's all about not giving up, having the persistence to go to the next level, and having small goals in life. What my learning has been, there has to be one very big goal that you put as goal of your life. And cut to that, there has to be small, simple goals that are attached to that big goal that can give you that instant gratification she just spoke about. So that has been the learning. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And then lastly, Bhavna. So, I mean, you teach, you left another career, you started She-Nomics, became an entrepreneur, and then of course you also teach leadership, mindful leadership for women. What are your thoughts on, what are your own thoughts on the key drivers of your career, as well as what you've had so far?
Thanks, Lina, for the question, and hi everyone who's watching, and a happy Mother's Day to everyone. I think if I think about myself, especially if I go back to early influences, I think the way I was moved to a great extent with just watching how my parents lived their lives, and I just saw them, even though they came from a very, very humble background. Their life was so much about giving to others and taking care of the people around them. So deep down, I always knew I want my life to be about giving in some form. I didn't know what that would look like. Initially, the first half of my career was very, very traditional, and I followed the very straight and narrow path of, living and working in New York, working for a large investment firm, having this corporate, having this corporate life. And my life was very much about the doing. It was very, very achievement oriented. And yes, that worked for me for a while, but eventually I realized it wasn't giving me a sense of meaning. It wasn't giving me a sense of fulfillment. So for me, I reached a point where I had to ask myself, okay, so how can I live my life in a way that will allow me to bring that sense of meaning? And so this was now, I guess, 7 years ago, made the dramatic decision to move to India. And the one thing I would say, because we're talking about drivers, what is the thing that eventually set me on the right path? The biggest thing was, of course, coming across, I always say, coming to India has been a sort of a spiritual odyssey for me in many, many ways, especially as I started learning more about mindfulness and started practicing mindfulness. And the thing that gave me is, more than anything, and the biggest advice that I would even offer to everyone watching is that, in mindfulness, we say that we are human beings first before we're a human doing. And up until then, I know my life was all about doing. And so for the first time, I started asking myself, okay, but who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? What kind of woman do I want to be? And in mindful leadership, a lot of it boils down to what are the values that you want to live your life with. And so for me, once I got clarity on those values, whether that's courage, whether that's giving, whether that's compassion, then the thing that kept me going was every step of the way asking, well, am I being the highest expression of courage that I can be? Am I expressing kindness and compassion to the greatest extent that I would want to? And it was continuous, constantly asking myself that question that really kept me going and is going to continue to keep me going. So I would say, I think it's not, I can't boil it down to one thing, but for everyone who's listening, I think it's about asking yourself, not so much what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? And once you get clarity on that, you'll find that alone will drive you like nothing else will.
Thank you. And that kind of segues us very nicely into the next question, which is, of course, you know, a inspiring moment or sort of a moment, a life-changing moment in your career or in your life that really set you on a sort of a different path, or maybe you really realized that what you were doing is really what you want to do. Poonam, maybe back to you then and ask if you've had one or two such moments, and what were they and what change did they trigger?
Oh, 20 years in one moment, very difficult. There's so many. There's a basket of every day there is a new challenge. Every day there's something that you're facing. But if I were to pinpoint, that will probably help the participants of this discussion to take something away with them.
Yeah.
Would be that I always thought, coming from the marketing background and from the communications field, that, you know, when we are doing our MBAs, we are taught about the higher level jobs, which is, you know, you start with the dream of being a strategist, right? And if you just pick up and talk to anybody who's currently doing an MBA program, wants to be in the management field, would say the same thing. You know, I want to be a strategist, I want to start my own, probably be an entrepreneur or have my own startup. Or if I'm working, I would want an opportunity to strategize for an organization. Now, here is the bingo moment, which I want to talk about is, as you are progressing in your career, you actually understand that there can be so many people who can strategize. Who are the people who go ahead? Who are the people who achieve success? Are the people who are extremely good, not just in strategizing. That's 30% of a job. You can hire somebody to strategize for you, but it's the real metal of a person who can execute ideas. So my very big learning in life has been having the complete knack, you know, end-to-end, what should I say, the excellence in execution that drives things to happen. So that's my very big learning. And the moment I switched to my mind to not just being a strategist, but to be a person who's absolutely involved in the executional details, that started giving me the right success and the amount of success that I needed in my career.
So less procrastination and more getting things done.
Yes, absolutely.
Which, you know, in COVID times can be quite challenging, but I think that's a question for later on. We just had an audience question to Bhavna here about, you know, talking about mindfulness. How do you live mindfully on a daily basis? Is that something you want to bring in? We're jumping a little bit now, but since we anyway brought up mindfulness.
Sure. And it's a $1 million question, which I talk about endlessly for hours. So I'm just trying to see how I can give you a short and sweet version. So mindfulness, let's just begin quickly with the definition of mindfulness. So very simply, mindfulness is just about living with greater awareness. It's about being more aware, both on the inside, aware of who you are, what matters to you, what's important to you. And of course, aware of this moment, aware of everything that is happening around us as well. And to answer your question, what can help us live mindfully? So first and foremost, of course, sort of the strongest foundation is, going back to what I was speaking about earlier, is just being clear about what is most important to you. So and you know, there, of course, one has to begin with the end in mind and really ask at the end of the day, what is the impact that I want to leave behind? What do I want people to say about me? How, at the end of the day, what's going to make me proud? That how did I live my life? And once you get clarity on those values or those qualities or those, those characteristics that you want to define your life by, then every day it's a question of asking, well, am I living in alignment with that? So that's the sort of the big, the strong foundation that we build on. But more getting into the more specifics, of course, there are a number of practices that will always can very powerfully help you come back to the present moment and live with greater awareness. Meditation, of course, everyone talks about, is really, really powerful. But even aside from that, one thing I always offer is, let's say meditation, a lot of people sometimes struggle with it and give up. One really easy thing that I want to offer everyone that anyone can begin with, that will always bring you back into the present moment, is what I call a happy meditation, which is at any point in your day, think about whenever you're experiencing something that brings you joy, that you enjoy, and that could even be a cup of chai. It could be you're hugging a loved one. You are eating a great meal. It could be anything. And at that moment, just simply pause and immerse yourself into that moment a little bit more. So if you're having that cup of chai, to fully engage all of your senses so that you enjoy it that much more. Or if you're having a great meal, to just take in that aroma, take in that, just savor the texture. If you're hugging a loved one or having a conversation with someone who's dear to you, to just really sort of lean into that moment a little bit more. So it's about deepening the positive moments in our life more. And if we do that with awareness, with intention, then we're cultivating that ability to be present and to be mindful. And that alone can be such an easy but a really powerful way to start living mindfully.
Be mindfully happy, or happily mindful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Such a good insight. Ananta, I'm sure you have a large number of moments, given how the significant and long career you've had, but what are some of the key moments, and again, some of the key sort of life changes that you had in your career that you thought really defined what you want to do and who you are, and maybe that you've now brought with you when you're coaching women and other entrepreneurs?
So, talking about life changing, I think it's mostly at the beginning of your journey, when you decide where you want to work and what you want to do. Since I'm extremely fond of meeting people and I'm extremely fond of talking and interacting, so it was a very natural thing for me to get into sales and marketing. And that's where I started my journey. One of the things that, I continued doing during my journey was that I always ensured, that I gave the right feedback and I spoke the truth. Sometimes it can push you back a little also in your career, because everybody normally talks what the top bosses want to hear rather than the truth. But over a period of time, it gets cleared out, and you get respected as being a trustworthy person. And I was very clear right from the beginning, that's what I wanted to be. Climbing the ladder very quickly was not something that I was looking for. But what actually happened is that worked as a catalyst for me. And in my 20s, I was head of sales in one of the biggest companies in my industry. In my 30s, I was already a chief executive. So it wasn't that I was setting goals for myself, that this is where I wish to be at such and such time. Things just started working for me. So, when you talk of mindfulness, and when, like Poonam said, that 20 years is too big to pick up those few incidents, but it is a journey. It's a journey of snakes and ladders, and you just keep doing the right thing. And before you know it, you realize, oh my God, everything that I wanted to do in corporate life, I've already done. Now what next? What's the next challenge? How do I reinvent myself? And how do I stay at the top of my game? And that's when, you realize, okay, fine, maybe I should add a few degrees. Maybe I should do a few courses. Maybe I should add a few hobbies. and you have to keep reinventing yourself and working on yourself. I think that's very critical, in the journey of life. Otherwise, somewhere you lose focus and you'll stop enjoying what you are doing. So you have to just make life very interesting, and that's all that I would say.
Thank you. Wonderful. I like this. This bringing it back to continuous learning and reinventing yourself and finding new challenges, even when you're at the very top of your game. Tara, you've had some reinventions. What sort of triggered these changes in what you've been doing? And have you had one or two? Is it a continuous journey, like some of our fellow speakers have said, or has it been? Can you think of specific moments?
So, Lina, I've known that I wanted to be a writer since I was 6 years old, and I think by the time I reached college, I knew I wanted to write about gender and sexuality and feminism. And I started out right after college doing that, except at 24, I became the editor of a decor magazine. When you're 24 and you get an opportunity like that and you're a starving writer, you don't say no, especially when it's with the BBC. So, I mean, I came back after that detour 4 years later and started writing again on gender and sexuality. I think that what we don't realize is that it's not a straight path. You may know what you want to do, but there are life circumstances that get in the way. Even with Why Men Rape, I knew it in 2013, I wanted to do this. I knew I didn't have the money to embark on this project. So I think you need to have your goals in place and keep them in mind. The other thing, when you realize that it's a continuum, the thing that you have to do is approach every experience with the attitude. Now, I'm saying that you give every experience a positive spin, which is not to say all things happen for a reason or everything works out in the end, which is a bit unfair to say, but at least the least an opportunity can be for you is a learning opportunity. So with that and growth mentality, I think you're able to move forward a lot. The other couple of learnings that I've had is that creativity exists in a space of organized chaos. Or as Hamlet, was it Hamlet? It was in Hamlet or something, where it's between method and madness. And I think that to me is the space that I found for my creativity, because you have this idea that career women or writers or all these, really drunk, unhappy people who've just given everything up for this one singular goal. And it doesn't need to be like that. I think that's something that one doesn't realize. It doesn't need to be, career or motherhood or happy relationships or friendships. You can have it, you can really have it all. The other particular advice for women, and this is very recent for me, particularly for women, but in general, is that you're always second guessing yourself, right? You're taught to be critical of yourself. And I think the most recent evolution in my career process involved the confidence in some ways to look at my own writing and not second guess it. And this actually happened because the person who eventually ended up being the editor for my second book with HarperCollins, I sent her a proposal and she called and, she said, she had an hour and a half long conversation just saying, I'm phenomenal, great writing. And I think I've heard it over the years, but you're always wondering whether you're good enough. So there's a fine line between pushing yourself and criticizing yourself, or of, praising yourself and becoming complacent. And I think striking that balance is really important. But the second thing I realized after that conversation, it's made me much more confident about, my skills. But the second thing I realized is, we should be nice. We should be the wind beneath other people's wings, because you don't know what you're sparking off. You don't know what journey you're setting them off on. So I think those are my key learnings at the moment.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Again, linking back to this kind of continuous learning, or keep pushing yourself, but also be compassionate, be trustworthy, like we had before. And we have a question here about, and it's directed at Ananta, but it actually links to the next question, which is around, how can women build themselves up to make the most of opportunities in the organizations that they work in. And I think we have a broader conversation here about how has work life changed. We have a lot more women in leadership positions in India, even though we have a very long way to go, and we all know that 28% of women in the workforce, etc., etc. But if I start with Ananta, what's your sense in terms of how women can really make the most of opportunities that come up in the organization, especially in male-dominated sectors like your sector?
Right. So first and foremost, Dr. Lina, I think all sectors are male-dominated. There isn't any sector which is female-dominated, right? Except for what's going on right now, which is lockdown and which is homemaker game. So I think every sector is male-dominated. So I think let's put that aside for now. If it wasn't male-dominated, I don't think Tara would have written the book that she has written. I could not even watch the episode yesterday where they were showing Draupadi in Mahabharata, and the discussions around the whole game of dice. And she has gone ahead and written a book on that topic. It's so easy to write about happy things. It's so difficult to write about sad things. Similarly, the question that you're posing to me, well, every sector is male dominated. I think we keep talking about 6 C's and all that. I think we need to talk about the 3 E's. The first is that women have to actually believe they are equal, right? And you have to teach the world how you deserve to be treated. You have to draw your line, right? So you have to be behaving equal in every which way, if not better. So you have to be at the top of your game to earn that respect of equality. That's one very, very critical thing. Now, once you are treated as equal, okay, fine, she's as educated as me, she's as tough as me, she can do everything as much as I can, or maybe better than what I can. Now, once that equality bit is away, the second very important thing is not having expectations, right? Because you are good, this should happen to you, or this will happen to you, or this is how people, everything right will happen to you. But if you start, being a crybaby at your workplace just because you're so talented and because you have other responsibilities, then you tend to lose respect. It's one thing choosing organizations where you are valued. They think of you as a mother and a very, very top professional both. There are organizations which do that also. But if you are not in that setup and you have chosen to be in a particular place at a particular time, then to have too many expectations from your workplace also brings you down a little bit, because it's not a place which you are running. You're trying to fit into a setup, and within that setup, you're trying to do the role that has been assigned to you. Or else you take the she-nomics route and you start something on your own, which is what she has done. You can do that. And I do remember and recollect that we were together at the Women Economic Forum, where the whole day, this was the question which was being discussed all day long. So, it's very important that you believe in equality. It is also very, very important that you do not have any expectations. And the third E is that you are equipped for what you have set out in that journey independently without anybody's support. And I will go back to what my fellow panelists just said, that end to end, you should be competent to handle it, you know. And that will come only if you make that extra effort. अपने काम में तो आपने अच्छा होना ही है, दूसरों का भी देख देख के आप सीख जाइए, उसमें कोई harm नहीं है. The whole problem that I have seen, and I'm not differentiating men and women, please, between people who are successful and people who are not successful is only one thing. People who are not successful want to get a lot by giving very little. And people who get a lot eventually at the end of the journey, whether it's respect, whether it is monetary benefits, whether it is positions, whatever it may be, is because they give a lot more than what they are getting, and they're not bothered about what they're getting. They are passionate about their work. You change jobs not because you want to climb, you change jobs because you love that new role, or you love the policies of that setup, or you are very proud of that particular organization and you would like to be associated with that type of leadership. So, you know, it's not only remuneration which drives winners, it's roles, and it's also sometimes reporting which drives people, you know. So you have your key decisions in life. There's only itna sahi to hai aapka work. You have only those many years when you're going to be really working, if you're talking about the corporate sector, or if you're talking about starting your own startup, and you'll know whether you won or you failed, and now you need to do course correction and move into something else. You know, it's not like you keep trying, and you've reached the end of your life. So you have to really be very clear in the beginning what you are choosing, how you're planning to do it, and how well can you do it independently without looking left and right. I hope I've answered that first question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think you made some interesting points. I'd love to hear Poonam and Bhavna what you have to say in terms of, you know, on the one hand, how do you see the role of the women leadership and women's role in companies changing in your sectors? And the other is, of course, I think a tricky question around expectations that women have or should not have. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, Dr. Lina, we all know about yin yang, the two energies, right? So Dr. Ananta has beautifully explained one side of the coin, and I want to put the other side, the flip side or the other side to this entire scenario. I would be answering a question a little later, but before, when it is about women and how many women are active, what is the labor force in the country, what is the concentration percentage of women in the urban developed cities, especially in India, and if we were to equate ourselves globally, what is the number in percentage? Cut down to here, the question is about how do you, in your realm of, you know, your career, your happiness, your growth, your prospects, you are trying to figure out your ways, and, you know, you're going against the tide sometimes, you're in the current sometimes, you're trying to figure out how to be, you know, maneuver around the current which is going on, and then figure out a place which is a safe place for you, which is a place for you to give you the happiness of having a corporate life, having a career, having a, you know, satisfactory life, productive day. End of the day, you have to come back home feeling that I achieved something. It was meaningful. It had the mindfulness that I wanted to achieve, because as Tara said, you have to strive very hard to have it all. It's very difficult to have it all. You know, if you talk about having kids, you're talking about having a personal life which is demanding, also a professional life, and if you want to go up the ladder, then it is all the more the kind of investment that you have to do very, very strategically to threaten everything in your life to ensure that it is coming to a state where optimal performance is there in all spheres of your life. Now, coming specifically to your question, and the other side that I want to give to what Dr. Ananta just described is, I would call it mob, for everybody to just remember it. Life is all about choosing things, and life is all about decision making. So the mob comes to choose your manager. He or she is going to lead you to where you want to be. There's no two thing about it. If that is not the reality, start your own startup. If you're in the corporate world, you have to choose the manager, you have to choose a leader you want to be with. That's the M of mob. The O of mob is, after that, choose the organization you want to be with. See that what kind of offerings they have, and do you foresee yourself for the next 4 or 5 years climbing the ladder up and being satisfactorily happy in that organization. And the third B is choose your battles. There is no organization, there is no perfect world, there is nothing that's not going to come to you with challenges. There will be opportunities, and in the realm of opportunities, you will be facing challenges every now and then. And it's your power of decision that will help you to maneuver ahead. So that's the mob from my side.
Wonderful, thank you. Bhavna, I'd love to hear your thoughts here as somebody who's both a woman entrepreneur, has left a corporate career, and of course teaches women leadership as well, or leadership to women.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to leadership, and I would echo the thoughts of my fellow panelists, really it boils down to two things, all right? One is having the right mindset to lead, and second is having the skills or the capabilities to lead. So coming down to women's leadership, the good news is that when it comes to capabilities, there is not one study, and at Genomics, of course, we do a lot of research into this. There is not one study to date that says, or that has demonstrated in any way, that women are not as capable as men when it comes to leading. In fact, a majority of them will rank women higher on several attributes of leadership as compared to men. I mean, and take right now as an example, right? We're going through this crisis. What are the countries that have done the best job of managing this current crisis? It's countries like New Zealand, Taiwan, Norway, all of which have, Germany, all of which have, women as heads of state. So that, I think, that alone can give us a lot of confidence to know that, we're fully capable. So really, where we see the gap is what I think Tara was talking about, as well as Ananta, is when it comes to the mindset. So we call it the confidence gap, where, yeah, I would fully agree. I think, and this, a lot of this is, of course, societal conditioning that kind of seeps into our psyche, where we start to doubt ourselves. So there, I just, sort of quickly say two things. One, of course, is to be able to not take that inner critic, so that inner voice that is always making us doubt ourselves and question ourselves, to not take it too seriously. The best thing I heard recently, I was listening to a podcast, and this person was saying is, whenever you hear this negative chatter in your mind that stops you from doing anything that's important to you, just treat it as fake news. So whenever you hear that mental tape, just think, oh, it's fake news, I am not paying attention to it. And instead, what we want to do, so again, just tying it back to mindfulness, what we've seen, especially, working having worked with thousands of women, is the antidote to self-doubt is actually self-compassion. So if all of us, as women, we intentionally come from that place of compassion and say, you know what, in this moment, I'm choosing not to listen to that fake news. Instead, I'm choosing to believe in myself, as Ananta said. Instead, I'm choosing to come from wishing well for myself. I find, and of course, speaking from personal experience, that will take you much, much further than being hard on ourselves ever will. So that's one. And the second thing I would say, and I completely echo what others have said, is to, in a practical sense, to just always raise your hand and ask. Ask for help, ask for opportunities, ask for advice, ask for support, ask for resources, whatever it is you need. I found more often than not, 9 times out of 10, if you simply ask, you'll be surprised by how many people would step forward to help you and support you. And this is somewhere, I know sometimes we shy away from that, but in a practical sense, really, if one, those two things. So ignore fake news, just ask, raise your hand and ask.
to self-compassion and raise your hand and ask. Love it. Talking of self-compassion, we probably need a bit of that right now, given the crazy times that we're moving through. What are the things that you would want to say to women of any stage of their career or life in terms of coping with the extraordinary times we live in? Do you have any sort of personal experiences or nuggets of advice or anything else that you'd like to share? I thought, let me start with Tara and then I'll ask each of you to contribute.
Well, so lockdown was what it was. When it started, it took me a while to adjust to the changed life plan, right? I was supposed, after a year of isolation, which is what the last part of the book of Why Men Rape became, I was ready for the launch and it was going to be a new stage, and then the world just sent me back into isolation. So once it took me a little time to adjust to what the new reality was, and that I needed to now work on the second book, because isolation is kind of very similar to what my life is when I'm writing. And so in the beginning, it was all good. I was really productive. And I think some 14 days into that, I had this massive meltdown. I think you have little goals, right? And one of the goals was to complete all of these transcripts, which is really boring. And I did, and I felt really celebratory, and I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and the day was the same. It was just another day like the one before. And I think it just got worse. And at the end of the day, after my big meltdown and 1 hour of crying and all sorts of drama, I think one of the things that I realized was that it's okay not to be okay. You know, we're so consumed with trying to be productive at this point, and you're either working or you're baking or doing whatever. But that's not always that's not reality. And it's okay for you to take your time and do nothing and play games or whatever else, or watch movies, or even Netflix and chill, if you know what I mean. But it's okay to take your time and step away, because being as productive, and this pressure to be productive during this time, you're not as productive as the next person, more or less than another person, or more or less even than you were yesterday, because the mind's dealing with a lot, and a lot of your subconscious is consumed with anxiety for the future. Never before have we looked at the world and said, okay, tomorrow is a complete unknown. Like I cannot talk about it, I cannot plan for it. And it's forcing you to be mindful of today, but it's not a natural human condition. We're always planning and plotting, and whether it's short-term plans or long-term plans. So in this space, I think the one thing that I want to tell everyone, and not just women, that it's okay to feel creatively stifled, to feel flaky and distracted. And I think that's my big lesson from the lockdown, that, just take it a day at a time.
And don't force yourself to be productive.
Yes.
Wonderful. Dr. Ananta, what are your thoughts, and do you have any advice for women out there? What have kept you occupied?
Unfortunately, exactly opposite of Tara. I would love to be that person who's just so happy doing nothing and just letting the day go by. But God has made us all so differently. Every day has to have meaning for me. And I'm such a high energy person. I cannot be doing nothing. I cannot be sitting free. I have to be so busy. Otherwise, I'll be very unhappy. So all of us need something different to be happy. And so therefore, my advice to everybody who is like me, yeah, because we are nobody to give advice. Each one of us has our own journey and our own roadmap. But my journey to people like me who are extroverts and who are high energy individuals is that, plan your day before it hits you. So if the night before, okay, tomorrow, this is what I'm going to be doing mentally, it's not you maintaining an almanac or something, but if you know that, okay, today, let's say, for example, I never knew how to bake a cupcake. I never did that. So it's something new that I did. It gave me a lot of joy. I've done something new. I showed the whole world, all my relatives went crazy. So this is what I did. So it could be anything, a lot of reading, a lot of writing, maybe revising your music lessons or your dance lessons, or getting into some kind of a fitness goal. Or for different people it is different, but there's so much that the world has for us. How can you just let the day go by? And there's only limited time that we have. We haven't come with endless amount of life. So,
I have to.
So let's just do as much as we can.
No,
with
I
the
have
time.
to interject, Ananta, and say, no, I get it. That's what I was saying. So I was super productive and I got super excited about lockdown and how to manage it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that social media is full of that, right? But the pressure that a lot of people are facing when they're not on this productivity contest is also psychologically difficult for some people. So I totally get it. And I think if I do more than a day of just chilling, I'm just like, okay, what have I done with my life? But it's also okay to be on the other side is all I'm saying.
Each to his own, to his own.
Yeah.
Whatever gives joy to everybody. I think that's what it is. But I don't think we are going to have this type of a lockdown, ever. And I hope we never get into a situation like this. But it's really like becoming young again. It's like you've just given your 12th boards and you're waiting to join college, and you have this 2-month summer break and do whatever you want to do with it. Because even your work from home is also not the way it is when you're working in office, because your commuting time is cut down, your dressing up time is cut down. There's so much else which goes into, a full day at work. So I think there is a lot of time available to us, and I'm hoping and assuming everybody is locked down with people who matter the most to them. And it's also time to build on those relationships, So that's the only message that I would give. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
So it's okay to be unproductive. It's okay to be very productive.
Yes.
Bhavna, what would you say? Do you bring in mindfulness into this? So what's your, how do you make the situation as reasonable as possible and as positive as possible for you?
So one of my favorite quotes of all time is by Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And it goes, between stimulus and response is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In that power lies our growth and our freedom. And what he's really saying with that, and it applies so beautifully at a time like this, is that we'll never be able to control the external environment, the external triggers, the external stimuli, as we're all learning right now. However, we can always, as individuals, choose our response. And that is where we exercise that power, when we choose what that response is. And that response could be anything. It's going to be different for different people. It could be, I'm okay with not being okay. I'm okay with not being productive, or my response is to use this time to be more productive. It could be, the entire gamut. But coming back to mindfulness, really what we've been saying is just, it really boils down to asking yourself 2 questions. One is, where am I? So if it is a matter of choice, where do I choose to give my attention to at a time like this? And where am I going to choose to get my energy from? So for the first, because, and again, if I speak from personal experience, I remember the initial first few weeks of the lockdown, because I wanted to be informed, I was just going crazy consuming all the news around me. And I realized very quickly it was starting to create a lot of anxiety. I was getting sleepless nights. It was impacting my mental health. And that's when I had to come back to that question: what am I choosing to give my attention to? It is a choice. And so I started seeking out more positive stories. And even right now, there are so many people that are profiling that. For example, just to give you a really fun example, there's this comedian, John Krasinski, who has this show called Some Good News.
Oh yeah, so good.
It's so good. So I end my day with that because it fills me with all the positivity that I need at a time like this. And the second question, and also I'm going to just tie it to a question from Vijay about taking care of our mental health and physical health, is what am I getting energy from? Because at a time like this, we do need to prioritize self-care. So to ask, okay, what gives me energy? Is it taking care of my physical health or mental health or emotional health or spiritual health, whatever it may be, to really ask, okay, what do I normally derive? What helps me feel better? And how can I carve out even small moments in my day so that I'm filling myself up with that positive energy? So really those two questions. What am I choosing to give my attention to? And where am I choosing to get my energy from?
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we have just going to ask Poonam one last question, but I wanted to say to anyone who has a question, especially any ladies out there, please write a question in the Q&A so that we can ask them before we wrap up. So Poonam, you've heard of everyone else's strategies and ways to manage the current crisis. What has been working for you so far, and do you draw on your experience as a life wellness coach? Do you draw on that? Are there learnings from that you could share with the audience?
Sure. I think everybody said it all. Everybody spoke about the right things. And as we derive from the session, that everybody is coming from a different space. So, Gita says that it's always about the philosophy of having a pragmatic life. Now, to just give you a little sense of the pragmatic life, it simply says the past is over. Forget about it. You can't change it. So don't even dwell into that. Future, this is a brilliant example for anybody to understand. Human beings have the greatest ego to think that they are building their future, though they are, but they have the greatest ego to say, this is my achievement. This is what I did. This is I did and I achieved and I drew in my life. Lockdown is humbling everyone. Has humbled the entire world.
Yep.
The most powerful man is thinking, how can I save my country? The most powerful man is thinking, what is it to save my people? How can I stop people from dying? So this is a time and a period to humble down, not get into the race, go back. You just mentioned, Tara, that you end your day watching a show. I try to figure out where can I get all my episodes of Tom and Jerry that I used to watch as a child, because the race gives me the happiness. I want to feel like a child again. Work from home is a part of our life now. I don't see it just getting removed one day and lockdown is over, because the times are difficult. This is the time to be really mindful about not thinking only about that, race function of productivity. I would say productivity is also about what are the things, list them down. I did the same thing. This is going to be my time of working. This is going to be my time of socializing, because the socializing is digital now. I have entire family on Zoom. I have my fitness classes on, happening digital. So it's beautiful time. I'm not wasting my time on the road. I am investing my time in becoming better. I am able to put more face masks that I never had the time to do. And I have removed everything from my drawers. Oh, expiry date is coming. Let me consume everything. So I think it's about planning your day. Dr. Ananta mentioned about just not get onto the day a day before. Think about what you're doing. Slot your day and slot your entertainment. I think that has helped me. I have slotted my day into, this is my fitness, this is my entertainment, this is my not doing anything, and this is my doing something. And on top of it, I would want to end by saying this is the most precious time for learning. All the things are available digital. There are a lot of avenues of learning that have opened for people. Go hone yourself for better skill set, because the times are going to be different now. You don't want to go back to your work as the work left you 3 months before or 2 months before. You want to go and say, you know what, this time I utilized to become a better person. This time I utilized to become a better professional. I learned something which is just not part of my work profile, but something that I wanted to learn. And here I am, who's a better, motivated, positive, mindset-oriented person back in the world with everything that's going to be a little different for everyone now. Over to you,
Wonderful. I think that was a great ending to the conversation we've had here over the last hours. I think we've had a lot of insights in terms of, use mindfulness, be mindful about how you live your life and how you cope with the current crisis, be organized, try to do lifelong learning, and this is a really good time to learn. There's so many interesting insights here, and keep moving forward. So with that, I thank all the panelists, and I leave it back to Prashant to wrap this up.
Thank you, Lina. See, I've been just a silent spectator and just taking everything for the last 1 hour, and I'm sure I'm just as other attendees and all. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being a part of this, and hopefully we will come out stronger when this COVID thing ends. And all of this, we take this time as learning experience. Learn as much as you can. That's the only thing what I've been doing, and what most of them will be doing. So thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.